You've got a competition coming up in the next week or two. Are you figuring out how to play competitively, or are you still casual?
Yeah, some. I'm actually wanting to talk about some, as I've learned a lot of lessons I'm going to be taking into my competitive games in the future. I just have been trying out new tactics and have come to some realizations that I think would make a rather good video. So let's talk about that right after Darren gets his lines in.
Honestly, thanks for giving me a line. I really don't have much to say, although, what's been going on with the ghoul stars and the ship graves? Are they, moving?
Yeah, I've been noticing that. I think we should probably be getting worried about that. Like, it doesn't look like chaos, but given where we are, I think that might be worse.
Well, we should get on with the video, right? Talking about competitive play.
Yeah, we should be getting on with that, but seriously, why are the stars and ships moving around us? Like, we look outside and we'll see it one way, turn around, and then they'll be in a different position. I swear, we saw a galleon vanish and a shooting star just appear and vanish. A hammer stomper just poof into the thin void. This is genuinely something that we should be concerned about. The ghoul stars are unknown, and there's been full-on black shields that just show up, or blackstone fortresses just come out of nowhere, and one where people become undead and even Nurgle can't handle them, and he has a zombie legion in his codex, which I need to talk about, I think, next week.
Yeah, we should probably be concerned. Anything make sense to you?
Why do you ask me? I'm not a star guy. I only know constellations from the point of view of Earth, mostly Indiana and Florida, not Terra. That planet is so polluted that you can't see the sun during the day. And if I see Orion, the Big Dipper, or Scorpio in the sky, I'll actually get worried, given that means we're teleported without the warp. Of course, I'm pretty sure those stars are gone in the 41st millennium, along with the fact that Terra isn't in the same location that Earth should be in my timeline, but that genuinely might be a writing error from the creators of the setting. Either way, let's talk about competitive play. I've learned a few things about the game of Warhammer 40,000. First thing I've learned, melee is great if you're small. Guns are great if you're big. Let me explain. Now, if you're using a tank or a knight or a titan, and if you go into melee, dear God, what are you doing? Their melee weapons suck in an insane way. Seriously, some titans can only kill 4 models if they roll insanely well and the target doesn't save well. And that's not very likely. Not only that, but knights and titans in melee do not get their invulnerability saves. Of course, with that, the melee on smaller units tend to have a lot more of them. Sure, they're lower strength, which makes it harder for them to actually wound, but they tend to have more attacks with them. Honestly, an insane number. A close quarters weapon has averaging 3 attacks, and the units that with them usually have a minimum of 5 with a strength of, 3 or 4? Sure, it'll be hard for them to actually hurt the target, even if it's something simple, but it'll have at least 15 attacks during the fight phase, which means at least one of those is going through. Of course, Night guns are high strength and high damage, but they also have very low attacks too, except for a few like the Night Valiant's flamer weapon. The Night weapons are very much built to fight other knights, and almost nothing else. Hell, they actually added an armiger just to make knights usable against infantry armies. Meanwhile, the smaller boys get the angry flashlights, but they do have a few anti-tank guns, but most are bolt guns and equivalent. Of course, this leads into the second lesson I've learned, and it immediately throws my previous statement out the window. More attacks are better than powerful attacks. Looking at Horde armies, let's take a look at Tyranids since I have access to that codex, despite the fact there's been a Gene Stealers codex at my local game shop for almost a year now, but Termagants come with 10 to 20 models in their units and are primarily ranged units, with their default weapon being the Flesh Boar, which we'll calculate into this equation. Each Flesh Boar has assault, meaning they can advance and shoot, and each have one shot with a 4-up hit rate and a 5 strength. No AP but 1 damage each shot. So defaulted, they get 10 to 20 shots at a 50-50 hit rate. That can assume that half will get in, more or less. Against standard intercessors, which is the standard calculation, with a 5 strength you'll have to roll a 3 or more to get the wounds. Now, intercessors have a 2 out of 3 chance to block shots. Let's do some math. 10 shots go through, 2/3 of them go through, so 6 on average. 2/3 of them are blocked, meaning 2 shots go through, 2 damage go through. 1 model is dead. This is an average calculation, so 1 model dies per shooting phase, assuming the average. Obviously you can get more or less, but it's still a good calculation. And this isn't even the most, as you could get double the number of shots at closer range and not take a negative against vehicles, or you could also shoot in melee with the pistol options, which all can take. Now, what about knights? Since we're looking at battle line shooters for Tyranids, how about a battle line shooter for the Imperial Knights, since they're the standard? The Armiger Helverin is the standard ranged baby knight. They come with 2 Armiger autocannons and either a Melta or Questoros Heavy Stubber. The Stubber is the default, but the Melta is the heavier gun, so let's look at the Melta. Each autocannon comes with 4 shots, meaning they have a total of 8 shots per unit, with 3 up to hit, 9 strength, a 1 AP, and dealing 3 damage. So shooting all into intercessors, they'll make 2/3 their shot per round, so average of 5 make it through more or less, rounding down obviously. 9 is the strength, and that's more than double the 4 toughness of the Space Marines, so wounding on 2 ups. So 4 will wound on average. Again, rounding down. Now the Astartes saves. The 3 up becomes a 4 up because the AP -1. So a 50-50 shot, 2 attacks deal damage. And with a 3 damage per attack, that's 2 models down. Sure, that sounds good, but also remember that's an average too, and there will be differences. But that's a very weak weapon in the game, with more attacks and less power. I want to point that out. So let's look at the same unit's power weapon, the Melta Gun. This thing has 1 attack with a Melta 2 ability, but that can be ignored against the Astartes and any sort of infantry units ultimately, for a very particular reason we'll get into momentarily. It's a 3 up to hit with 9 strength as well, and a 4 AP, and a D6 damage. With Melta, it'll deal an extra 2 damage if it's within half range. Now, what does this mean? It means that this unit will kill 1 unit per shooting phase, assuming you don't flub your hits or wound rolls, because the 4 AP will set the armor save for the intercessor to 7. But if you're in melee, that 3 up to hit becomes a 4 up. And if you're in melee, you're likely to be bracketed very quickly, which will make that 4 up to hit a 5 up. So you'll be flubbing really soon. Having more weaker attacks essentially guarantees some chip damage every round, which the bigger guns will, with less attacks, are only going to kill at most one model, really, because a single attack's damage doesn't carry over to the next model unless it deals mortal wounds, which guns don't really do. Now, GW has been trying to balance this with the blast abilities on so many knight weapons, but it doesn't do near as much as they seem to think. An extra attack for every 5 models with a unit being attacked, and the attack is usually dealing a d6 at default, so against a 20-man unit, this unit may deal 10 attacks at most, and a lot of Horde armies have resurrection abilities like the Gene Stealer cults. Now, a third thing I've learned is cover is often forgettable, but surprisingly important, especially for knights, but this makes melee godly. The Knight Gallant is a melee Questoris Knight, and it has no invulnerability saves against melee. But the Knight Lancer does, that one is great. But knights want to be at range in order to get cover, and be able to use their invulnerability saves. One model breaking that rule is an outlier. But I've been talking about this subject for too long. I've got more things I've learned about, but I need to get to work on some stuff, mostly nagging my illustrator, so shove off.